الماء حي فهو دار به نور به ترقى به تحيا عالما مرفق اطلب العلم
صوت الحق والإيمان والإسلام وأنبغ من حمل راية التوحيد حتى الآن.
اطلب العلم أخي فهو درب به نور به ترقى به تحيا عالما حرا فخور سل إماما عاش في العلم دهورا ودهور يطلب العلم ببذل حتى ضمته البحور.
If a woman is wearing earrings which cover a little bit of the back or front of the earlobe, does she have to take them off when wiping the ears, or would she just twist them to allow water to reach the skin beneath? It's the opinion of Shafi'iyya, Hanafiyya, and Malikiyya, and one of two opinions by Imam Ahmad, and the opinion of Al-Qurtubi and Ibn Hazm, that the ears are sunnah to wipe in wudu. And we selected that opinion when we went over this matter. I believe we mentioned that An-Nawawi in Sharh al-Muhadhab related the ijma' by Ibn Jarir al-Tabari that there's an ijma' if one leaves out the ears from wudu, the wudu is valid. And that coincides with it being a sunnah. That's the definition of a sunnah. The question does not specify ghusl or wudu. I assume it's ghusl wudu because it says wiping over the ears. So if a male or female leaves the ears out altogether in wudu, the wudu is valid. But wiping the ears in the method that we mentioned is sunnah. And we love to stick by the sunnah. Since this is wiping in wudu, it's more relaxed. There's no need to remove the earrings or even move them about. What gives it a lot of room and leverage is that this matter is, meaning wearing earrings, was something widespread during the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam's time. And there was no specific ruling mentioned pertaining to them. In hadith Jabir ibn Abdullah radiallahu anhu in Sahih Muslim, he said that he attended Eid Salah, when the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam performed the Eid Salah. And then he gave the Eid khutbah. Then he walked towards the women and he preached to them and admonished them and asked them to give charity. And then they began to give charity. What did they give? Their jewelry. What part of their jewelry? Earrings and rings. And they began to throw on a cloth placed by Bilal. فَجَعَلْنَا يَتَصَدَّقْنَ مِنْ حُلِيِّهِنَّ يُلْقِينَ فِي ثَوْبِ بِلَالٍ مِنْ أَقْرِطَتِهِنَّ. أقرطتهن is earrings. That's a Fusha term for earrings. من أقرطتهن وخواتمهن. They gave their earrings and their rings. The point of that is that earrings and rings were known and widespread, and they were commonly used. And there's no ruling by the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam specifically pertaining to them and wudu. So there shows there is no specific matter pertaining to that. Ears are wiped as a sunnah of wudu, and matters that are wiped, we said many times, are generally based on making matters easy, and their rules are more relaxed. So wiping over them, when wiping over the ear, is sufficient. Now, even though I don't believe the question pertains to ghusl, let's take it pertaining to ghusl. In ghusl, we know earrings were known. There's nothing specific mentioned about that. However, in ghusl, the water must encompass the entire body, including the earlobes, the inner and the back of them. So, in my personal study, I believe since nothing was mentioned, and they were known back in the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam's time, they do not need to be removed. Especially if they're like the drop earrings, the ones that hang down below the earlobe. They hang on a hook and they hang down. Why? Because they hang down with a hook. And that hook is not a barrier from the water reaching all over the inner and outer part of the earlobe. However, other types of earrings that are tight earrings, or I believe some of them are referred to as stud earrings, or anything similar to them. Sometimes they're even big and they cover a great portion of the ear. Sometimes on the top of the ear they're placed. And it creates a barrier from the water reaching the skin under it. Sometimes even the smaller ones are so tight that they do that. For those in ghusl, one should move them about to let the water reach behind them. Or if they're tight, and big to the point where water will not go behind them even when moving them about, then one should take them off prior to the ghusl. Now what's left here is the piercing itself, the hole itself. Some ulama, like Ibn Abdin and al-Bahuti, went to the extent of requiring that the hole, the inner part of the hole, should be washed or water placed in it. They said if water can easily flow in it, in that piercing, then they need to do that. But if it doesn't easily flow in, then they said it's not required. In Kashaf al-Qina' lil-Bahuti, he said the interior parts of the limbs are not required to wash. But when you made a hole here in the piercing, that hole that you made gives it the ruling of the exterior part of the limbs. Some went to the extreme of requiring that a pin be placed to make sure the water gets in the hole and makes sure it's wet. Shafi'iyya said the interior of the piercing hole is considered an interior part of a limb that does not need to be washed even if one is able to, and that's correct. The safest route, is if the piercing is big, like some countries or some cultures, they have earlobe stretching that they do, and it's very big. It's probably better to let the water flow through in because it's big enough for that. But the small regular ones, that's not necessary, like the Shafi'iyya said. So let's give a recap or a summary. In wudu, you do not have to take the earrings off because the wudu is wiping the ear. And that in itself is sunnah. And wiping the ear is based on, the wiping of it itself is based on making matters easy. So one doesn't have to take it off or even move it about. Just wipe over it when you're wiping over your ear. In ghusl, the water must encompass the entire body. And if the earring is the kind that hangs with the hook, that doesn't block the water from the earlobe, the inner or outer part of it, then they can leave it on and the water flows around it. That's fine. If it's the tight stud earrings or anything similar to that, one should move it about to make sure the water goes behind it. If it's loose and the water goes behind it, then nothing is needed. If it's so tight, one can get water behind it without taking it off, then one should take it off. That's an analogy to, as well, to what some ulama mentioned pertaining to a ring. Finally, the inner piercing, the hole itself, I don't believe that takes the ruling of the external ear that needs to be washed. And the Shafi'iyya correctly said that water doesn't have to go in the hole. Those who do earlobe stretching and the hole is quite big, then it's better to let the water flow in it. But the normal, regular, small holes, the Shafi'iyya correctly said that doesn't take the hukum of the external part of the ear. And water doesn't have to flow in it.